Back when El Chapo was a free man, he would sometimes go out to eat at restaurants, and trust me when I say that you'd be very happy if you were there when he came in. As soon as El Chapo showed up at the restaurant, you were gonna know about it, because his men would literally go around and take everyone's phones. He obviously didn't want someone calling the police. Then he would just enjoy his meal, and when he was done, his men would give back everyone their phones. And then he would also pay the bills for everyone at the restaurant. This guy has probably stolen money from you, but when you find out what he did with it, you'll be glad that he did. His name is Hamza Bundalaj, and he is one of the most ruthless hackers the world has ever seen. He was living in his mom's basement in New York when he decided to attempt something no man had ever done. He hacked into 217 banks and 60 million bank accounts. Just to put that into perspective, that's over 18% of the US population. Him and his friend got away with $4 billion in a matter of months. But you see, there's a reason why they're smiling, and you won't believe what they did with the money. They donated over $280 million to charities in Africa and Palestine. However, they were still sentenced to 15 years in prison. Crazy coincidences you won't believe actually happened, part 3. On July 28, 1900, King Umberto I of Italy visited a small restaurant in the town of Monza. As the owner greeted him, the king realized they looked identical and also shared the same name, but they soon discovered many more coincidences. They were both born on March 14, 1844 in the town of Turin, both married a woman named Margherita on April 22, 1868, and both had sons named Vittorio. They both served in the military and were promoted to different ranks on the same day, and the owner opened his restaurant on the same day that King Umberto was crowned. But it gets weirder. The day after the pair met, on July 29, 1900, the owner was killed in an accidental shooting the same day that King Umberto was assassinated by a gunman. Sad things you never noticed in Marvel movies, part 2. In Spider-Man No Way Home, Aunt May's grave doesn't say Loving Aunt on it because no one remembers Peter ever existed. In Avengers Age of Ultron, Thor braided a lock of Loki's hair into his own as a way to remember and honor his brother since he thought Loki died. Clint named his son Nathaniel Pietro Barton, Nathaniel representing his best friend Natasha and Pietro representing Quicksilver, who saved his life. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 8. The Scribble pen can recognize and replicate any color that you choose. You just have to scan and start creating. An RGB color scanner copies the colors of real objects, and a smart pump creates the colored ink inside the pen. Next, you can forget about fire extinguishers, as now there are fire extinguisher balls that can put out fires in just a few seconds. Just throw the balls into a live fire and it will get put out immediately. Next, you can keep anything secure by using this USB stick that needs to be unlocked before plugging it into a computer, or you won't be able to access it. And if the passcode is put in wrong 10 times, everything on the stick will be erased. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un brings his own private toilet wherever he goes in order to protect his poop. His bodyguards oversee all his toilets, and if anyone is caught using one of them, they could be sentenced to death. He never uses a public restroom, even a secure one, so he can prevent spies from investigating his poop and getting information on his health, but this all gets even crazier. He's so paranoid of his poop getting into the wrong hands that he even has built-in toilets inside all of his cars, even including his bulletproof Mercedes-Benz.
It's brutal out here.
That video got over 40 million views, and a lot of people were wondering how does that pool work and where does the water go, so I'm here to tell you everything you need to know. I did some research, and the specific pool he is at the Atlantic, which is an apartment building in Philadelphia that has a pretty big infinity pool on the roof. An infinity pool is built like any other pool, except there's one section that dips, allowing water to flow into a catch pool. And the water is pumped from the catch pool to the regular pool, so the regular pool remains full. This is what the pool he is in looks like from the ground, so it's impossible for people below the building to get water on them. And the water just flows from the regular pool into the catch pool. And you can't actually float off the edge of the water because you're not actually on the edge of the building, as it's just an illusion.
Why did no one tell me how big America actually is?
He's correct, most people don't realize how big the US actually is. But this all gets even crazier because this world map that we all know is a complete lie, and I'm gonna prove it to you. The state of Alaska alone is bigger than most of Europe. Africa is so big that the entire continental US fits in just the Sahara Desert. But you can also squeeze in China, Western Europe, Argentina, India, Scandinavia, and the UK and still have room left over. Russia looks pretty big at the top of the map, but when you place it near Africa, it looks much smaller. Greenland looks massive on the map, but when you place it on top of North America, it's tiny. Antarctica is so big, it reaches from Texas to the northernmost islands of Canada. Australia covers almost the entire continental US. Brazil is larger than the US and covers all of Europe. The UK seems pretty big, but when you place India on top of it, you see how small it really is.
What is the kinkiest fetish you or people you know have? The most fucked up fetish I know of is an ex had a fetish fantasy of having all 4 limbs amputated, so she'd be basically fully dependent like a house pet who can never leave, and is fully at the mercy of the guy.
That fetish is actually a rare condition called body integrity identity disorder. This condition makes people have the desire to amputate 1 or more healthy limbs or to become disabled. An example of this condition is Chloe Jennings White, who is physically healthy but lives like a disabled person. She always uses a wheelchair even though she can walk, and has made several attempts to injure herself so that she can be paralyzed from the waist down. She even found a doctor overseas willing to paralyze her by severing nerves in her spine, but she can't afford the surgery. Another example of this condition is Jewel Shooping, who was born perfectly healthy but always dreamed of being blind. So she convinced a psychologist to pour drain cleaner into her eyes, and when they did, she became permanently blind. This man used his Tesla to save a man's life, and you won't believe what Elon Musk did when he heard his story. Manfred Kick was driving his Tesla when for some reason the guy in front of him started hitting his car against the guardrail. Obviously he got out of the way and switched lanes, but as he drove past the car, he looked at the driver and noticed that he was unconscious. So how do you stop a speeding car with an unconscious driver? Well, apparently you use your Tesla. He drove his car in front of the other one and slowed down until his car got hit from behind. Then he continued to slow down until both cars came to a complete stop. This caused over $10,000 in damages to his Tesla. And then he administered first aid until help came. And then when Elon Musk heard about this, he said that Tesla would fix his car 100% for free.
Apple announced on iOS 15 they will be able to scan every photo you have. Apple says they will be scanning for any images or videos that might have CP.
You heard correct. Apple is now going to be scanning through all the photos you have, but that's not even the worst part. Not only will Apple's new feature scan through your photos, it will even scan through your messages and your Siri conversations. And if Apple's AI robot detects possible CP or other content it deems dangerous or bad, it will be revealed to a real person for manual review. But the thing is, anyone who controls the list of possible images could use it to search for any picture on your device. And not to mention, it could just straight up get hacked, and hackers could have access to millions of people's photos, videos, and personal information. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, Part 7. For disabled people without the use of their legs, having eye-to-eye conversations or reaching shelves is basically impossible. But some new wheelchairs have the ability to be unfolded into an upright position, helping disabled people stand on their own. To deliver urgent care quicker than ambulances ever could, first responders have created ambulance drones. They fly fast and come equipped with medical equipment like defibrillators, which can easily be used in a pinch and save tons of lives. Various European cities have begun integrating these pop-up toilets into the city walkways. Their intention is to prevent public urination on public sidewalks from late-night partiers. City officials raise them up at 10 o'clock every night and then lower them again in the mornings. You won't believe these jobs actually exist. Naming movies at Pixar. For this job, all you have to do is name Pixar's new movies and you can get paid up to $700,000 to do this. And apparently a woman that had this job got a $300,000 bonus for naming the movie Cars. Professional sleepers get paid up to $100,000 a year just to sleep. They do this for scientists to analyze their sleeping patterns or to test mattresses for hotels. An underwater hotel in the Florida Keys has an underwater pizza delivery man whose job is to deliver pizza to the hotel guests 21 feet below sea level. Would you like to find your dream job, or maybe find a job where you can work from home? Well, the app Hirect is here to make hiring easy, especially in midst of a pandemic and an out-of-date job market. Simply get the Hirect app, put your job preferences, create your profile, and just like that, Hirect's AI algorithm will show you recommended jobs and salaries. Click the link in my bio to find your dream job now. Genius People Who Beat the System, Part 9. Neil Pascoa received an 89.41% grade, but instead of asking his teacher to bump his grade up, He asked her to drop his grade a couple percent so his parents wouldn't see how close he was to an A and would give him less hassle. But Neil's reverse psychology worked, as his teacher instead bumped his grade up to a 90.11%. We all know that the games at the fair are rigged. Well, this TikToker decided to play by their rules. While the employee wasn't looking, he hopped over the counter and put the ring on the bottle himself. And they ended up winning this prize that was so big it wouldn't fit in their car. This Reddit user found a way to beat the chaos of Black Friday. A day before the sale launched, he'd go to Best Buy and pick out the items he wanted. He would then hide them in the washer and dryer machines in the store, and when Black Friday rolled around, he would simply walk into Best Buy and retrieve his discounted items. I bet you didn't know that adults can actually adopt other adults. In fact, there's an upcoming show about the unfamiliar world of adult adoption that has the internet going crazy. One example from the show is this married man who had an inappropriate relationship with an adult woman he was previously trying to adopt, and now he's looking to adopt another adult daughter. Another example is this woman who wants to leave her mother behind to be adopted by another couple that she found online. Those unbelievable yet true stories of grown-ups seeking adoption are only 2 of the 6 stories featured in the new show Adults Adopting Adults. It premieres January 31st at 10 on A&E. Here are some photos taken right before disaster. This is the last photo ever taken of Paul Walker. You can see him getting into the car that would ultimately crash and take his life back in 2013. The saddest part of all is that this happened at a charity event Paul Walker was hosting. This photo was taken just moments before the homage bombing. The red car you can see in the photo contained a bomb that would end up killing 29 people and injuring over 200 others. Surprisingly, the man and child in the photo survived, but the photographer didn't. This unsuspecting family captured the last moments of Ayanu Takamasu's life. As just moments after this photo was taken, Ayanu would fall over the railings into the Niagara Falls to her death. She had climbed over the railing to take a picture with the falls when she lost her footing and fell. Times when psychics helped solve crimes. On May 15, 1976, 14-year-old Susan Jacobson left her home to go to a job interview at an ice cream parlor, but she never came back. Susan's parents contacted the police, but the police said she probably just ran away with her boyfriend Dempsey Hawkins, and they refused to search for her. 2 weeks later, Susan's parents contacted a psychic, Dorothy Allison, to help with the case. Dorothy asked what the word Mar meant, claiming she saw it in red spray paint. She also envisioned an abandoned car, dual church steeples, the smell of oil, and claimed that Susan had been strangled to death by her boyfriend. Then 2 years later, 3 boys stumbled across Susan's body as they were hunting. At the site was the word Mar spray painted in red on a rock, dual church steeples, an abandoned car, and 2 oil drums which contained Susan's body. Plus, evidence at the scene showed that Susan had been strangled by her boyfriend Dempsey Hawkins, who was then sentenced to 22 years to life in prison. Here's why you wouldn't survive the zombie apocalypses in some of the most famous movies and games. The infection in World War Z is unbeatable since the zombies can sprint very fast and form walls, allowing them to climb on top of one another. Also, their only interest is in spreading the infection. Once they bite a victim, they move on trying to bite another victim, which gives you no time to escape. Next, the infection in The Last of Us is unbeatable since the zombies can evolve and even release spores that infects anyone that breathes it. Also, society collapsed, all buildings and structures have crumbled, and all important technology, including the internet, has ceased to exist. Next, the infection in State of Survival is unbeatable since there's over 20 types of infected and some can even summon other zombies. But if you think you can survive, then put your skills to the test in the mobile game State of Survival, where you can build post-apocalyptic shelters and take on the undead with your friends. So if you're up for it, click the link in my bio. Lost inventions that could have changed the world. In the 90s, Stanley Meyer created a water-powered car that he said would only need 22 gallons of water to drive from Los Angeles to New York. Stanley said after his invention was shown on TV, he was threatened and even offered millions of dollars from huge oil companies to kill all evidence of his technology. And in 1998, Stanley and his brother were having a business dinner with 2 investors when suddenly Stanley collapsed to the ground, muttered the words "they poisoned me," and then died. Just a week after Stanley's death, his lab was raided and all his research, including his water-powered car, was stolen. That video got 100 million views and lots of people were asking if the handler ended up being okay, so I did some research and here's everything you need to know. The gator's handler named Lindsay Bull opened the door to feed the reptile in a small pool when it bit her hand and wouldn't let go. Right when the gator bit her, it performed the infamous death roll. If Lindsay didn't roll with the gator just like she did, the gator would have took her whole arm completely off. A bystander named Donnie Wiseman jumped on top of the gator and pinned it down for Lindsay to be able to escape. Lindsay was immediately rushed to the hospital and underwent surgery, but should have complete use of her hand after treatment. Bullies called this kid a monkey, but what the internet did for him when they heard his story will restore your faith in humanity. This is 21-year-old Zanziman Ellie, and for his whole life he has been bullied for the way he looks. You see, Ellie has a condition called microcephaly, which causes his head to be way smaller than the rest of his body. People in his village bully him and call him a monkey because he eats grass, climbs trees, and lives an unusual lifestyle. He was beaten and abused by other kids and villagers because he was seen as an animal and not a human. And the more he was bullied, the more he feared people, which caused him to run away from home every day to hide in the jungle, which really worried his mom. But after Ellie's story went viral, a YouTuber named Aframax started a GoFundMe to help Ellie and his family, which ended up raising over $6,000. Aframax then gave all the money to Ellie's mom, which she used to buy a brand new home to give Ellie a better childhood. This man's hand actually got stuck in his stomach, but just wait until you see how it looks like now. Carlos Moriarty was working on a machine used to make plastic tableware when his left hand got stuck inside. When he finally got it out, he literally had no skin on his hand and he lost all of his veins and the tops of his fingers. He got rushed to the hospital, and when he woke up after his surgery, his doctor told him that he did a very rare procedure. They sewed his hand in his belly to develop new tissue and tendon material, and he had to keep it in there for 42 days. After the 42 days, the doctors then took skin from his leg and put it on his hand. And now, this is what it looks like. The CDC has an official guideline with steps on how to survive a zombie apocalypse if it really were to happen. I am not joking. If you go to the CDC's website, you can find a zombie preparedness section. And with how crazy 2021 is, anything is possible. So let's go through the CDC's zombie survival checklist. You're going to need water, food, medications, tools and supplies, and more. Go ahead and pause now to read all of it. Next, you'll need to come up with an emergency plan. This includes where you would go and who you would call to join your zombie survival group. Imagine how easy it would be to survive a zombie apocalypse if you could join Daryl Dixon. Well, now you actually can in the mobile game State of Survival. It's a super fun game where you kill zombies with your friends, build awesome post-apocalyptic shelters, and they just released a collab with The Walking Dead, so now you can even play with Daryl Dixon. If you think you can survive, click the link in my bio. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 29. Elon Musk is going to launch a satellite that will beam advertisements into space. He will be partnering with a Canadian technology startup to launch a satellite named CubeSat into orbit. Now you might be thinking that you'll be able to see the ads in space from the ground, but that's just not true. Instead, the satellite will look like this, with one side having a massive screen, where companies will be able to place their ads there by buying pixels on the display screen with cryptocurrency. A selfie stick will be attached to it which films the display screen, and the footage from the screen will be live streamed on Twitch and YouTube for people to watch it back on Earth. And the CubeSat is predicted to launch in early 2022. Men who have bigger noses have been also found to have bigger peepees, a recent study suggests. The study looked at the corpses of 126 men within 3 days of death and measured a range of body parts. And apparently the length of the men's noses correlated to the size of the peepee. Although there was a correlation between nose and peepee size, doctors couldn't find a reason as to why this might be. So the question is, how big is your nose? Genius people who beat the system. Up until 2019, women were not allowed to attend soccer matches in Iran. But in 2018, these 5 girls successfully snuck into a championship soccer game disguised as men. Some schools don't allow guys and girls to be in their dorm rooms together. But this couple came up with a very creative solution to still hang out and watch movies together. A mayor in Brazil prohibited bar owners from setting tables on the sidewalk. So the bar owners came up with an amazing solution that honestly looks pretty dangerous but also fun. This man from Turkey was banned from his favorite soccer team stadium for a year, but he didn't let that stop him from missing an important game. He rented a crane and raised himself high enough so he could see the game, and he even led the crowd in a chant. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 4. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Students from the University of Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can wirelessly charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Many people claim to have found the reason as to why 2020 and 2021 have been the worst years ever. So supposedly this is what the fallen angel Lucifer looks like, and this is what the moon looked like on March 31st, 2020. As you can see, they look exactly the same, and many people claim that this was the beginning of all the bad things that happened in 2020 and also in 2021. This man claimed to be from a country that doesn't exist, and some people say his story could be proof of a parallel universe. In July of 1954, a businessman entered a Tokyo airport and was asked for his passport, which he then handed over. His passport said he was from a country named Torad, and it looked 100% legit and even had stamps from other countries. But the country of Torad doesn't exist. Trying to understand the situation, the customs officers brought out a map and had him point to where the country of Torad was, and he pointed right here. He pointed to the country we know of as Andorra, and this perplexed the man, and he said the map was wrong. And what's even crazier is that the man said he had flown from Torad to Tokyo many times in the past. Since security couldn't verify where this man was from, they detained him and put him in a hotel and put guards at the door. The guards never left the door, but the next morning the mysterious man, along with his belongings and passport, had disappeared. The Australian army once lost a war against the emus, and you won't believe how. In 1932, 20,000 emus, which are big flightless birds, invaded farms in Western Australia and were causing widespread crop devastation. Things got so bad that the Australian army officially declared war against the emus. But the war only lasted a month and resulted in Australia losing, and here's how. First reason is that emus are basically bulletproof since their organs only make up a small part of their body, so it would take 10 bullets just to take out one of them. Next is emus have the strongest legs of any animal and can run 35 miles per hour, and they can change direction so fast men in trucks couldn't keep up. Next, they can jump 7 feet straight in the air and they can shred apart metal fences with their talons. Next, they were way smarter than anyone thought. They would have lookout groups that would stand guard and warn the others if they saw soldiers approaching. If you see a roof like this, you should probably stay away from the house. You see, this house is obviously hotter than the houses around it, which is why the snow melted. But you might be asking, so what? Well, when drug dealers are growing marijuana, the lights they use for the plants get very hot, and since the heat rises, it melts the snow on the roof. So for legal reasons, I'm gonna tell you to stay away from these houses. This man received a life sentence just for stealing a slice of pizza. Back when Jerry Dwayne Williams was 27, he was on the beach getting drunk with a friend. They decided to play a game of truth or dare, and Jerry was dared to go steal a slice of pizza from some nearby kids. However, he was arrested for this crime and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. But this is clearly an insane sentence, so why was it given? Well, as it turns out, Jerry had some priors for robbery and unauthorized use of a vehicle. This meant that with the pizza theft, he fell under the purview of the 1993 three-strike law, which was a law put in to heavily punish repeat offenders. But thankfully, 5 years into his sentence, he was able to overturn it and was released from prison. But it's crazy to think that he still served 5 years in prison just for stealing a slice of pizza. Here are the unbelievable ways that Ted Bundy escaped prison not once, but 2 times. Ted Bundy is one of America's most horrifying serial killers, possibly killing upwards of 40 young women. Because Bundy was representing himself in his trial, he had the right to use the prison library to study law. When he got to the library, he jumped from the second-story window of the building and ran straight for the mountains. But 6 days after his escape, Bundy was back in custody. When he was recaptured, he starved himself and lost 20 to 25 pounds. This made him thin enough to slide through the bars in his cell and climb out through the roof. After escaping this time, he made his way to Florida where he killed his 3 final known victims. A little more than a month after the 3 murders, he was arrested for the final time. And in 1989, Bundy was executed by electric chair, and tons of people celebrated at his execution by wearing t-shirts saying "Burn Bundy" and "The Bundy Barbecue." Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 27. A prototype of this flying car logged its first 35-minute flight between 2 airports in Slovakia a week ago. The inventor says it hit a cruising speed of 106 miles per hour and it can reach heights of 8,200 feet. But if you think that's cool, check this out. It can transform from an aircraft into a car in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. It took 2 years to build and cost just under $2.4 million, which honestly isn't that bad for a legit flying car. This TikTok shows Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein, and they were just caught trying to launder $4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Back in 2016, hackers broke into the crypto exchange Bitfinex and stole 120,000 Bitcoins, which were all funneled into a crypto wallet controlled by Ilya. Ilya and Heather then tried to launder their crypto by using thousands of small transactions and accounts set up with fake IDs. They also withdrew some as cash from Bitcoin ATMs, spent some on NFTs, gold, and Walmart gift cards. The Justice Department has seized $3.6 billion worth of the stolen Bitcoin, with the rest still being unaccounted for. This TikTok shows Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein, and they were just caught trying to launder $4.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Back in 2016, hackers broke into the crypto exchange Bitfinex and stole 120,000 Bitcoins, which were all funneled into a crypto wallet controlled by Ilya. Ilya and Heather then tried to launder their crypto by using thousands of small transactions and accounts set up with fake IDs. They also withdrew some as cash from Bitcoin ATMs, spent some on NFTs, gold, and Walmart gift cards. The Justice Department has seized $3.6 billion worth of the stolen Bitcoin, with the rest still being unaccounted for. Lost inventions that could have changed the world, part 2. In the 1890s, inventor Nikola Tesla created Tesla coils, which were able to transfer electricity over short distances without any wires. Tesla's ultimate goal was to provide everyone on Earth access to electricity completely for free. So in 1901, Tesla began building a Tesla coil so powerful it would be able to transmit power anywhere on Earth completely wirelessly. But in 1904, his investors pulled their funding because Tesla's main rival, Thomas Edison, wanted to have a monopoly on electrical power instead of giving it free of charge to the world like Tesla planned to. Disney movies that are secretly based on disturbing stories. Disney's Sleeping Beauty is based on a fairy tale from the 1600s that's very disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised. In the original fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty's name is Talia, and she falls into a death-like sleep after a splinter of flax slides under her fingernail. As she sleeps, a king from another kingdom discovers her and has his way with her unconscious body. The sexual assault results in Talia becoming pregnant with twins and then giving birth, all while remaining asleep with the help of fairies like the ones in the movie. One of the twins accidentally sucks Talia's finger, which removes the splinter and wakes her up. And even though she wakes up to find that she has 2 children with the king who took advantage of her, the story ends with her marrying him anyways. Here are some of the worst gender reveal fails ever, part 2. This gender reveal went tragically wrong when a plane streaming the sign "It's a Girl" nosedived into the ocean. The expecting family was watching from a boat when the plane lost control while performing stunts, killing the 2 pilots. During this gender reveal, a father-to-be did a burnout with his car to reveal the gender of his baby, when suddenly the car burst into flames, but thankfully bystanders pulled them from the burning car unscathed. A family did their gender reveal party at a quarry with 80 pounds of tannerite, which is an explosive powder. When they detonated the explosion, it caused a small earthquake which rocked 2 states, causing lots of damage to nearby houses. The government has millions of dollars of unclaimed money, and some of it is probably owed to you, so I'm going to show you how to claim your cut. First, go to unclaimed.org, scroll down and select your state. I'm just going to use Texas as an example. Search using your last name and it'll show you how much money you have unclaimed from the government. Your cut could range from a few dollars to thousands of dollars. Once you find how much you're owed, just follow the steps to receive your money. Most expensive mistakes in history. Apple was founded by 3 people, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ron Wayne. But most people haven't heard of Ron Wayne because back in 1976, he sold his 10% ownership of Apple for only $800. If he had decided to wait until 2022, his 10% would be worth around $300 billion. In 2000, Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix, met with the top executives of Blockbuster. He wanted to either partner up with Blockbuster or sell them all of Netflix for $50 million. Blockbuster laughed at Hastings' 2 offers. 10 years later, Blockbuster went bankrupt, and now Netflix is worth $158 billion. This 29-year-old man married a 4-year-old girl, but the reason why will make you cry. Little Abby was diagnosed with cancer at just 2 years old and had spent her whole life in and out of the hospital. She was sad because she just wanted to be a normal girl, but that's when she met her nurse, Matt Hickling. Matt checked up on Abby every single day, but in his heart he felt like she didn't have much time left. So Matt made it his mission to make sure that Abby felt loved and appreciated before she passed away. Abby loved him so much that she actually told her mom that she wanted to marry him one day. However, only a few days later, Matt received a phone call from Abby's mom. Her mom asked him if Matt and Abby could get married, and no, I don't mean legally. A few days later, they had the cutest little wedding at the hospital. Even though it wasn't real, Abby will remember this for the rest of her life. 15 months after her wedding, Abby completed her chemotherapy treatments and is now cancer-free. A girl got expelled from school for posting this exact picture, but you will seriously not believe the reason why. It was the night of Kayla's 15th birthday when her mom snapped this photo of her at a restaurant in California. Her mom instantly shared it to Facebook and they thought nothing of it. That is until a few days later when Kayla received a furious letter from her school's principal. She was permanently expelled from school, but the reason why will shock you. So Kayla's school was actually a very religious Christian academy named Whitefield Academy. They didn't like that she was wearing a rainbow sweater in front of a rainbow cake, implying that she was part of the LGBTQ community. According to the principal of the school, this goes against their beliefs. This tiny 1-inch jellyfish's sting won't actually kill you, but it will make you kill yourself. I am not joking, let me explain. The Irukandji jellyfish's sting causes a state that scientists have described as a feeling of impending doom. People that get stung believe they're going to die, and they're so certain of it that they'll actually beg their doctors to kill them just to get it over with, or they'll just kill themselves. And if that isn't bad enough, another symptom it gives you is relentless nausea and vomiting. How does vomiting every minute to 2 minutes for up to 12 hours sound? Amazing. It also gives you lower back pain that people describe as similar to an electric drill drilling into your spine. There's no antidote, and the only treatment is managing the symptoms. And where do you think you can find this amazing jellyfish? Australia, of course. Here are some Google secrets that you didn't know about. If you type in Google space and click the first result, all of Google will start floating in space and you can type and mess with all the buttons by throwing them around. If you type in Pac-Man, you can play a Google version of Pac-Man along with other games such as Tic-Tac-Toe, Fun Facts, Minesweeper, Snake, Solitaire, and much more for free. If you type in Thanos and click the Infinity Gauntlet, you will not only make some of the search results disappear, but half of Google will also be snapped out of existence. And if you click it again, everything will be reversed. This man escaped prison 2 times by simply walking out the front doors without anyone noticing. Steven Russell was serving 6 months in prison for fraud when he decided he wanted out. So while in jail, he stole street clothes that had been discarded and confiscated a walkie-talkie. When the guards were preoccupied, he put on the civilian clothing, grabbed the walkie-talkie, and acted like an undercover cop. He made his way to the exit and walked right out, but a few months later he was arrested for fraud once again. This time he was sentenced to 45 years, but again decided he wasn't going to wait that long. So he discreetly started to collect green markers from around the prison and used them to dye his uniform. His prison uniform now looked just like the scrubs that the medical staff at the prison would wear. So he used this disguise to make his way to the exit and once again walked right out the front gate to freedom. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 9. If you hate having to do the dishes, then this product is perfect for you. Just put it in the sink along with some soap and water, and in just a few seconds, the dishes are spotless. And as a bonus, you can even do your laundry with it. We all know that you have to either take every grocery bag in on one trip or die trying. Well, with this device, you can now easily bring in all the groceries in one trip using only one hand. Don't you just hate having to walk to your gate at the airport? Well, now you can sit and ride your luggage there. It's 3 times faster than walking, has good storage space, can charge your devices, and has GPS tracking so you never lose it. Weird life hacks that actually work. Getting the snow off your car can be a real pain, and just using a brush or a broom can scratch or dent your car. Well, all you have to do is use a leaf blower to quickly, easily, and safely remove all the snow from on top of your car. Have you ever had a balloon float away from you and then get stuck on the roof? Well, all you have to do is spray the balloon with some water and it will come right down. Don't you just hate when you pour soda into a cup and then the bubbles cause it to overflow and spill everywhere? Well, all you have to do is put a cup upside down on the soda and then flip it to not have it overflow with bubbles. This man escaped from 3 high-security prisons. Here's how he did it. In 1953, Alfred George Hines was serving 12 years in prison when he created his own key out of a bucket and used it to unlock his prison cell door. Weirdly enough, the other doors in the prison had the same locks fitted, so he used his key to open all of those too and got away in a car provided by a friend. After 8 months of freedom, he was recaptured, and during his new trial, he requested to use the bathroom. He was allowed to do so but had to be escorted by 2 officers, but he overpowered the guards and locked them together with a padlock he had smuggled in. Just 5 hours later, he was captured again as he was attempting to board a flight at the airport. He was then sent to Chelmsford, which was the only prison no one had ever been able to escape at the time. He somehow snuck his way to the prison walls, put 2 wheelbarrows on top of each other, climbed on top of them, and jumped over the prison walls to freedom once again. Dumbest/worst prison escape attempts ever. Kenneth Burnham was doing a few years in prison for burglary when he decided he had enough. As another inmate was about to be released on bond awaiting trial, Burnham took advantage of the light security and decided he would take that man's identity. He presented himself when the officers came to collect the lucky inmate, signed all the paperwork, and was just minutes away from freedom. There was just one problem. The inmate set for release, Glenn Taylor, was black, and Burnham was definitely not black. Prison officials quickly discovered the issue and Burnham's sentence was expanded because of his failed attempt to escape. Genius People Who Beat the System, Part 3. A girls' college had a rule that said you can't have carved pumpkins in your dorm room. But the rule didn't say anything about pineapples, so she went ahead and carved one of those. This guy's new job required a photo of him in a suit for their website. But since he doesn't own a suit, he just photoshopped his face over this guy's face, and honestly, it looks pretty real. This sign says no bicycle riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but it doesn't say no unicycling. These signs say that if you park on this side, you have to pay for parking, and if you park on the other side, you will get towed. So this guy parked in between both of the signs, so he doesn't have to do either. That's pure genius. A guy posted this photo online and said whenever he parks illegally, he puts a fake ticket on his windshield so the cops won't give him a real one. That's pretty creative. Genius People Who Beat the System, Part 2. A class of students were required to pick a Marvel character and then write a resume and cover letter pretending to be them. A student thought of the perfect idea and picked Groot, and since all he says is "I am Groot," that's what he put for everything. A girl's mom locked her phone in the bottom drawer because she misbehaved. But her daughter realized that all she had to do was take out the top drawer and she could get her phone back. A girl's dad went to Vegas for 5 days and put a camera in the living room to make sure she didn't have any parties. But the girl wasn't going to let that stop her, so she came up with this pretty creative solution. This parking spot says only green vehicles can park there, but I think the owner of this car took it a little too serious. This kid was playing a game on his Xbox when his mom told him to go play outside, so he literally grabbed his Xbox and played outside. So we all know that Kobe Bryant sadly passed away a year and a half ago. But I bet you didn't know that in 2021, Kobe just made $400 million in one day. So back in 2014, Kobe invested $6 million for about 10% ownership of the sports drink company Body Armor. And on November 2nd, 2021, Coca-Cola bought Body Armor for $5.6 billion. Which means Kobe's $6 million investment just paid his family $400 million. Kobe is such a legend that even though he isn't here in person, he is still taking care of his family financially. Vanessa Bryant, who is Kobe's wife, congratulated him on the Body Armor deal in an Instagram post. Pause now to read what she had to say.